This weekend interview is powered by Lululemon. Are you heading up to the Gold Coast Marathon? Lululemon is bringing together runners, crews and clubs for one of the biggest weekends on the Australian running calendar. Join them for the final race prep, recovery sessions and post-race celebrations. You can register for the clubhouse via the link in our Instagram bio or via the show notes. Tell us about this week's part one of this interview, Brad.
Yeah, so Youcef Abdi, he's Australia's second fastest 3,000 metre steeplechaser of all time, and finished sixth at the Beijing Olympics in the steeple. Grew up in Algeria, actually represented Algeria at the World Juniors in Sydney, and then his story is fascinating, the way that he makes his way back to Australia and misses out on a couple of Olympics. So I reckon that will probably cover the first half of his interview. So hopefully you enjoy it. It's the whole interview goes for 90 minutes and I was captivated the whole time. So hopefully, you guys are as well.
Probably one of the best, if not the best, I'd say, up there.
I haven't listened to it, but multiple people have told me, you got to get Youcef on for his story. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been on Patreon for a couple of weeks and we've had some really good feedback there as well. So.
This week's guest is a Commonwealth Games bronze medalist and he became Australia's second fastest 3,000 metre steeplechaser of all time when he finished sixth at the 2000 Olympics. Welcome to the Inside Running podcast, Youcef Abdi.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate you giving up some time on this Wednesday morning. And like every guest that we have on, running has obviously played a large part of their lives, but for you, it's probably played a more significant role because it's really changed the course of your life. Because after all, if it wasn't for running, you probably wouldn't be living in Australia.
Yeah, that's correct. Growing up, I mainly did football or soccer. So running was just by coincidence, basically. And the only reason I started running was I watched the 92 Olympics, and that's pretty much how I was inspired to start running.
Yeah, because you grew up in Algeria, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So born in Algeria, we moved to France when I was a kid. So I started my primary school in France, and at that time, the only sport I did was just soccer or football at school, just, lunchtime, like every kid, I guess. And I had one good soccer player in my class, Thierry Henry, who went on to become very successful, represented France, and he played for Arsenal.
Yep.
But then my parents decided that the life in Paris was too busy and too hectic, especially with my mom being stay-home mom. Then they decided to go back to Algeria. So we all went back.
Yeah, and I believe that you sort of got into running largely as a result of your brother.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, as I said, we did a lot of football as kids, not in any organized fashion or anything like that. It was just, kids when we have spare time at school, we play soccer, and same, we live in a tiny village, so the only activity is, playing soccer. But I was quite fit because I remember, so if I take you back to France, the school was only probably a couple 200 meters away from where we live. It was an easy walk. But then when we moved back to Algeria, the school was about 6 km away.
All right.
And it was very different, not very enjoyable. Where our village was on top of a mountain, so to go to school we had to walk 6 km every morning. And then after school, obviously, we walk. I usually run because I wanted to get home early to watch cartoons.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what started my running, I guess. We only had one TV station back then in Algeria, so I had to make it home in time to watch cartoons. So that's pretty much where my fitness maybe started. But then my older brother, Sam, or his full name is Samir, started running his school to represent the school for cross country, and he had some good results and had some good, ability. So then he went on to represent school at the zone and region and state, and then they went to nationals, and eventually they even won a trip to, I think they were called the school cross country, world school cross country. I don't know if they still exist or not.
Yeah.
And he went to Portugal. So yeah, he was like a bit of a superstar
Yeah.
in the village, and I was a bit jealous of his success, and everyone was talking about him. This guy went to Portugal to run, and that's pretty much how I started running. I thought, I want to get out of this village as well.
Yeah.
So this is probably my ticket out.
And you obviously done a really good job of it. So you represented Algeria at the 1996 World Junior Championships, which were held in Sydney. Before we talk about that experience, what's the pathway like for Algeria, or for kids in Algeria when it comes to athletics? Is it a popular sport, and is the system similar to Australia in that you compete for your school, but do they also have a strong club system?
Yeah, it's funny because I work for athletics now, so I often try to compare notes with the way I grew up, but also with other countries as well. So football was and is always the number one sport in many countries in the world, and I guess athletics or running mainly comes second. Just because I guess with countries like Algeria, they had a bit of a success in middle distance running. So there, a lot of kids do aspire to one day become, the next Morselli or the next Makloufi or Boulmerka. So that's kind of almost cultural, I guess. And for me, the reason I actually started running seriously, beside running with my brother and so on, I watched the '92 Olympics, and I remember watching Boulmerka winning the 1500 meters. I remember she was racing against the likes of Sonia O'Sullivan and also Morselli, and it was just massive news, and it was such an exciting period, and that's when a lot of kids wanted to one day go to the Olympics as well.
Yeah.
Of course, as you know, not every kid gets to do that. It's very hard, but for me, that's pretty much where the dream started.
Yeah, but you've made a really good point there about the importance of having role models and having the sport as part of the culture to keep kids interested, which, as we know in Australia, running and athletics compared to your AFLs and your NRLs is not really mainstream. So the juniors aren't really getting exposure to our top distance runners, really.
Yeah, it is correct, and it's very hard to compete, and I see it with other countries as well when they compare athletics to football. There's you can't even compare the two sports. But yeah, we definitely need to find ways to keep the young kids in the sport, because it's such a beautiful sport. I mean, for me, it changed my life.
Yeah, so 1996, you come out to Sydney for the World Juniors. You compete in the 800 metres, and your teammate was Saeed Gurney, who was a bronze medalist at the 2000 Olympics. What was that experience like for you? I believe you basically fell in love with the country.
Yeah, it was. Before the World Juniors, I remember when I started running seriously, and my brother introduced me to his coach, and he said, listen, I think he's got some ability and he wants to run. Within 6 months, I made the national team. for my age group. I think I was like 15. And we went to Spain to compete. And I remember back then they called them in French match d'athlétisme, which is like an athletics match. It's between three countries. And if we go the development, I guess, those trips overseas did help me. And maybe in Australia, when I compare the way I grew up, I know it's different. We're in a developed country here, probably kids, even now, I guess, it is important for kids to travel overseas to gain that international experience, and also to be outside their comfort zone and try, traveling to other countries, competing against other kids from other countries. So I think it's very important in the development of kids. So back to the story. Sorry. So we I remember in '96 I actually made the team in the 1500 meters with Ali Said DCF, who finished second at the 5K at the 2000 Olympics. And somehow we arrived here, the Algerian team managers forgot to include my name in the 1500. Somehow there was a spot in the 800, and they just put me there in the 800 meters. I remember racing the first round. This Japanese guy with a lap to go, he pushed me, and I went pretty much to line 6, came back in. At the end, I finished 4th. We protested. He was disqualified. I moved to 3rd, but it wasn't enough to progress to the final. They only take the first 2.
Yeah, an interesting stat there. Australian Grant Cremo got the bronze medal. Did you chat to him during that championship?
I didn't know him back then, and obviously my English was very limited. Yeah. What I do remember though, athletes from Spain, from Greece, from France that I competed against when we were doing all those athletics trips overseas. So that was kind of comforting and being seeing familiar faces. And that's what I would like to mention with the development of athletics. The more we give exposure to athletes to compete interstate or overseas, obviously they become more and more comfortable with the comp itself. So when they actually get to the biggest stage, such as the Olympics or Commonwealth Games or World Championships, it's not something foreign for them anymore. It's just a competition.
Yeah. Well said. And so at that point in time, did you ever think when you were running out at Homebush that Sydney would become your home?
No, not really. So what happened? So first round out, which was a bit sad, I guess, because I was really motivated to make the final. However, my plans changed because I thought, well, I've got 2 weeks now and I'm not competing. So I started to go to the city. Back then we had an accreditation that allowed us to travel for free. So I really visited Sydney, the city, pretty much every day, and I really loved it. And I started to kind of in my mind dream about how about if I come back here one day? What is it like to live here? So I wasn't really planning on coming back, but I guess back of my mind, my subconscious was starting to have some kind of plans about having a life here.
Yeah, and so can you talk me then through maybe the next couple of years from when you left Australia to then coming back? So why you came back and I guess the process for you coming back.
Yeah, so when we went back to Algeria, I remember the Algerian Federation said, you guys are such a good team, which we were a good team, that generation of 96. And the next step was we were going to uni and to study something that is related to sport. And because we represented the country, we will have some special consideration to go to uni. Because we missed so much, studies with going to camps and so on. Anyway, we all did the test like every student, and I remember I passed the test, and same as some of my mates, including Jabir Said Gurney. But then at the end, they only had 2 spots allocated for athletics. And they only took 2 athletes, and I wasn't included in that those 2 athletes. Therefore, we just have to go back to our homes, basically. Mm-hmm. And at that stage, I wasn't a kid anymore. I was a junior. It was a very important and crucial, period in any athlete's career. That's pretty much what determines which path you will follow. But unfortunately, where I lived, I didn't really have much. Even up to that point, I was just training on a dirt track, and the situation in Algeria politically was very bad, and it wasn't safe to train. So I was very limited with my options, and then the only other option I had was it's compulsory to go to the army in Algeria. The good thing was if you are an athlete and you represented your country, you will go to a sporting base. But unfortunately, same thing. I wasn't lucky, and when I received the papers to where we'll have to go, it was just a normal army base where you pretty much have to train and and fight the terrorists, and which is something I didn't want to do. I wanted to run.
Yeah.
So I didn't have many options. I thought the only option was to leave the country. I could have gone to France, but I didn't have my papers, passport, visa ready because I had to act very quickly. And the only thing I had was a visa for Australia. When we came for the World Juniors, we had a 1-year visa. So then I thought, well, I only have less than 48 hours to leave. And the only country I could go to was Australia. It was very far, obviously, and I had to gather a lot of money to get the ticket. But my plan was to come to Australia and then eventually go to France. Yeah. But that didn't happen. So I ended up coming here, and then 20 plus years later, I'm still here.
Yeah, so what, you arrived back here, must have been, 97?
No, in 96. So I came here in August 96 for the World Juniors. Yep. And I came back in November 96. So it was quite quick.
Yeah. And your family, what were their sort of thoughts when you left Algeria?
Very uncomfortable. Very sad when I left, when we got to the airport and I had to leave, because obviously it's not around the corner, it's very far. At that stage, they didn't know anyone or heard of any Algerian person living in Australia. So it's just was imaginable for them that they see their son living like that. I remember my mom was crying, my dad was crying, and it was hard, especially that uncertainty. I didn't have any contacts here. I didn't have anyone. I had to lie to them. I had to say, listen, I know someone from World Juniors when I went there, blah blah blah, and they can help me. But I knew that that wasn't true. So, but I had to keep a brave face when I left. But as soon as I got to inside the plane, I was thinking, oh God, well, where am I going now? And to make the matter worse, it was 24-hour trip. So it's a torture just to get here and thinking, well, once I get here, where do I go? So in fact, staying inside the plane was actually good.
Yeah. And so what did you do when you first arrived? Because as you said, you didn't know anybody. So those first few weeks, where did you first go to?
Yeah, so when I arrived, I took a taxi to Darling Harbour. That's where we stayed when we came for the World Juniors, and we stayed at the Ibis or Novotel. So that was the only hotel I knew. So I just said, take me there. I remember I had $700 in my pocket. That was the only amount I had. And because we didn't pay for accommodation when we came, we were part of a team. So I assume the government paid for all the expenses. So I didn't really know the costs. When I arrived, I said, I think I will stay for a week. And then when she told me the price, I think it was $150 or something like that. And that was back in 96. Yeah. And I almost fell and fainted. And it's not even enough to pay for my accommodation. And then I said, listen, I think I changed my mind. I'm going to see a friend tomorrow. So we'll just stay the night.
Yeah. And
so that's pretty much.
And so who was that? Who was the first contact that you had over here?
So after that, I woke up the next morning. I went to the city. I stayed in a hostel, and it was much cheaper. I think it was like, $12 or $15. I was able to buy, time and try and work out where to go. Then I had a contact that a guy gave me in Algeria. I used to go to this gym back home, and I see this guy all the time. And, when he knew that I was going to Australia, he said, listen, I have a friend who lives there. I will give you his contact, and you can contact him. So I had that contact, but deep down I thought, I will never contact him. Mm-hmm. So then when I was stuck, after the hostel, I went to actually spend a few nights at Bondi Beach, just because I still didn't know what to do. And after that, I was really stuck, and I thought, what, I have to call this guy. So I called him, and he said, I've been waiting for your call and this and that. And I kind of felt terrible, thinking, well, I don't know the guy,
Yeah.
But culturally for us, that's just what you do. If you, that's just certain cultures, I guess. That's just work. So anyway, he was very kind. He came and picked me up, and I stayed with him for, I think, a number of weeks, maybe 6 weeks, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, he looked after me, which is,
That's good, yeah. And so those early... So you had a 1-year visa. So what was the process for those next couple of years in terms of renewing the visas and supporting yourself?
Yeah, so after those 6 weeks, I moved out and went and stayed with another Algerian friend, if I can call him a friend, because I just met him here. And he said, listen, if you want to come and stay with me, it's fine. It will give this guy a bit of a break. So I did, and that was at Newtown. So my first stay was at Rose Bay, which was great because,
Nice area. Yep.
Exactly right. And then I went to Newtown, and I found a job at the Merrickfield Metro. It's a shopping center. Mm-hmm. And I started to get some money, and then I moved out and actually started to pay for my accommodation, like a share accommodation with an Australian guy. So then I was able to look after myself. But in terms of visas, I had to renew the visa, and they gave me what they called back then a bridging visa. and I had to ask for asylum because Algeria was, as I said, politically it wasn't great, and I couldn't really go back. So at that stage, I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the process, and that was 96. By 2000, I gained citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it was March 2000, and I became very much an Aussie, an Australian.
Yeah, so we'll get to the 2000 Olympic trials shortly. So from a running point of view, when you first arrived here, who were your first, contacts from a running point of view and training partners?
I lost a fair bit of training because obviously I wasn't stable, and I was trying to find, when I say stable in terms of, accommodation and so on, didn't have much money. So therefore, the priority was more to get myself sorted in that sense. But I always try and do, a half an hour if I can, or 40 minutes, or some kind of light session to keep me, reasonably fit. And then I was searching for athletics tracks, and I was surprised I didn't have many.
That's very true.
Yeah. When you go to the, European countries, every suburb has like 3 or 4 running tracks. So the first one that I could find was ES Marks.
Mm-hmm.
So I just went up, didn't know what to do. The first thing that guy at the gate said to me, I had to pay for training, which was just strange for me.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I'm here to do sports. Why do you want me to pay? And he explained that to use the facilities you have to pay. And growing up, I never paid for practicing sport. To go to an oval or so that was just strange. So anyway, I had to pay, and I was going back there pretty much every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and slowly I was making friends. I remember this French guy, sprinter, was training there, and when he heard me talking, he could pick up on the accent, and he said, "Oh, you speak French?" So we started speaking in French. He pretty much helped me a lot during those few months.
Mm.
Yeah, his name is Patrice Le Paulmier. He's overseas now. He doesn't live here anymore, but his help in those early stages, it was just enormous for me.
Yeah, I reckon ES Marks was where we first met back in the early 2000s, I'd say, when you were, I remember you were doing some sessions. Well, actually, you seem to be doing a lot of sessions like on your own, but I think it was Mick Little was sort of holding the stopwatch for you.
Yeah. In fact, I think I met most of the athletes and now friends at ES Marks. It was a very good place to start, I guess. And Mick, he was, I think, the first coach who approached me because he just noticed that I was going there by myself, and then the nature of training I was doing, he could see, was more middle distance training, sprinting. And eventually, we established a relationship, and we worked together for a few years.
So your running really started to take off, probably after the 2000 Olympic trials. So we'll chat about post 2000 shortly, but I just want you to tell the listeners about the Sydney 2000 Olympic trials, because as you said, you became a citizen earlier that year, so you're eligible to compete for Australia at the Olympics. Now, it was quite a unique situation, that 1500 meter trial. Do you remember it?
Yeah, I do, because it scarred me. First, I remember, the Olympics. It's a dream for any kid or runner when they are kids and thinking, when I grow up, I want to go to the Olympics. So then being here and eventually I got my running back on track, and I was, working and training, was studying at the same time, but everything seems to go well for me. And I thought, wow, well, the Olympics are around the corner. They are in Sydney, so this is a perfect opportunity for me to compete at the Olympics, and I don't even need to travel to another country. And I remember I was working in a warehouse back then, John Caldor, cutting fabric. And then I said to them, listen, I will only work until, can't remember, April maybe or something like that, because I have to go overseas. I need to compete and try and make the Olympics. They almost me at the beginning, but then eventually, they thought, oh wow, this is great, and they were very supportive. So then, even when I needed to go early to train, they were very accommodating. So I remember going to Europe to try and get the qualifier, and they had the stress fracture just before I left. And all the listeners out there, the road is never an easy one. And injuries always seem to pop up at the wrong time. But anyway, I already booked my ticket, and I already told work that that's it, I'm leaving. And because I was only casual, that's it, I couldn't really go back. So anyway, I pressed on and went to Europe. Once I got there, I was seeing a physio. Eventually got back to running and did a few races and won a few races, which was good. And ran a 3:39.7, which was just outside the Olympic qualifier. So I came back here for the Olympic trials, and I remember we at Homebush, of course, and the race was you couldn't really pick a winner because we had about 4 or 5 athletes who could win the race, but I was very confident, and I really believed that I could win. So anyway, 1,500 hits, final, all the usual suspects were in the final, and just fast forward. So the 1,500 we started, and the last 150 meters, I was sitting just behind Mottram and Nick Howarth. And Nick Howarth was, I can't remember if he was leading or it's between him and Mottram. And when Mottram went past him, Nick somehow pushed him. And this is obviously while we were still moving, so now we are more around the last 50 or 40 meters. And at that speed, just a slight touch, you lose your balance. And that's what happened to Mottram. He was right in front of me. He started losing his balance, and he was going down, and I could see that. So straight away I had to think of a plan B, because this guy looks like he's not going to stay on his legs. He's going down. Somehow I can't remember if I just jumped or went around him, and I finished second, and Nick Howarth finished first.
Yeah.
And then I think they were almost going to have a punch-up at the end. I remember it clearly.
Yeah.
And I remember athletes such as David Byrne and Clinton McAvichus. They were trying to keep them apart.
Yeah, so that was between obviously Mottram and Howarth.
Yeah. I didn't really care, to be honest, because I thought, well, I was thinking about my own faith, thinking, well, I finished second, but I know there was an incident. What does that mean? So I was trying to process all that while I was watching, these guys look like they're going to have a fight. So anyway, then Mottram, I think back then was Nick Pido, was his manager. They protested. Nick Howarth was disqualified, and I was declared the winner of the trials.
Yep.
So I was very happy. But then a few days later, I received a call saying, well, that 1500, we will need to do a rerun.
Yep.
And it was in Adelaide a week later. They had what they call an Oceania Championship, and they wanted to include just the 1500 from the Olympic trials a week earlier to go to Adelaide and rerun the race. So I thought, yeah, that's great. For me, it worked to my advantage because that 339.7, I'm still just outside the qualifier. Okay, so I said, all right, I'm very interested to go to Adelaide. However, I need a pacemaker because I'm in shape and I need to run a qualifier. These guys, they already had the qualifier, so they just need to win. So I said, for me, I need to win and run a qualifier. And yeah, they said yes. You always trust Athletics Australia. So when we got to Adelaide, just when I was warming up, I was asking who is the pacemaker, and they said there's no pacemaker. So it was kind of demoralizing because, as you know, in an event like the 1500 meters, it's really hard to run fast if you're not in a big race, or if you don't have a pacemaker. And in that case, I knew Nick Howarth and Craig Mottram. They don't care how slow the race. I just needed to win. But for me, I needed to win and run fast. And it was very windy. I tried to block it out and just run and race the best I could. I remember I won the race in a 3:43, maybe 44. Nick Howarth was behind me, and Mottram was 10th.
Yeah, Mottram was a fair way down. Yep.
Yeah. So then I knew, obviously, that's not good enough for me. But there was still hope because I was hearing other athletes that were giving them an extension to produce the time or the performance. I think one of the shot put or discus thrower in the newspaper that he had until such and such a date. And I thought, maybe I could do the same. But all the doors were closed after that. I tried to ring Athletics Australia and just never happened.
And so as it turned out, then Nick Howarth got selected, and Sean Crichton gave up his 5K spot for Mottram, and that was the 2000 Olympic team.
Yeah, it was very interesting, very hurtful, and as I said, it scarred me because I really didn't think Nick Howarth deserved that spot, but I wasn't a selector.
Yeah.
Now you can't go back and redo what happened. So that's it. You just have to move on.
But the positive out of that was, the next 8 or so years, you produced some really great results for Australia and represented Australia at 2 Olympics. So let's sort of move on to maybe talking about your training as a 1500 meter runner during that period from 2000 through to say 2004. So in that period, you won the Commonwealth Games bronze medal in 2002, and you missed making the final at the 2003 World Championships by 1 spot. So what did a typical week look like for you during those sort of years?
Yeah, coming from a North African background, we didn't really believe much in a lot of mileage. And I was surprised when I arrived here. I see a lot of athletes whether 800 or 1500, but they still do a lot of mileage. So that was probably a point of difference. My sessions were more very specific, and were more a race practice pace. That's pretty much what I did during my training. So a typical week, if we start, let's say Monday, I will usually run in the morning like every athlete, I guess. But then that afternoon, I will do some 200 meters, not at full speed, but just, let's say, 90%. And then on a Tuesday, run in the morning, and in the afternoon, I will do something that is longer reps, such as 1Ks, 800 reps, 1600s. So sometimes I will do one of my favorite sessions, actually, 4 times 1K. But you need to go at decent speed, let's say 230 or something like that.
Yeah. But you'd be having decent recoveries off that?
Yeah, I will have maybe 4 or 5 minutes recovery.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I will do something that's, 1200, a K, 800, 600, 400. So it is more, I guess, specific, and you do allow a bit of recovery in order to actually do the next rep at a decent pace. Then on Wednesday will be just a run. Thursday will be more shorter stuff. And Saturday will be mainly like heels or fartlek or tempo run.
Yeah. And so when you say, like Wednesday, for example, you just go out for a run, what would you get up to? You wouldn't do any more than an hour?
Like 55 minutes, an hour will be max. I remember when I was purely doing 15s, my long run will be no more than 70 minutes.
Yeah. It's definitely...
Even the likes of, when I was talking to Morcelli or even El Garouge, they don't really do longer runs. They do them shorter compared to, your what you typically call long run, but it is moving at a decent speed.
Yeah, it's certainly a big difference, isn't it, between sort of the Algerian system and the Aussie system, because although the reps, like a standard session for the Aussie system would be K reps, but they're off, 60 seconds recovery, 90 seconds, but they're more at your 5 and 10K pace, whereas you're running yours at, close to 1500 meter pace, but with longer recoveries.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, when I started, sometimes I joined another group for a session and they go straight away. And I thought, oh, guys, I didn't even catch my breath.
Yeah.
So that was a very kind of interesting change. But as I said, your typical North African training will be more race specific rather than mileage. Yeah. Even people like McLuffy, when I talked to him, because I trained with him in 2010 when I went to the Atlas Mountains, and I known him for a number of years. Same thing, it's more race specific and have decent recovery.
The ultimate destination for the Gold Coast Marathon weekend is the Lululemon Clubhouse, and it's happening at the QT Hotel from July 4th to 6th. Throughout the race weekend, Lululemon is hosting 3 daily events at the QT with no pre-registration required. Starting from 9 a.m. each day on the ground floor, a pop-up shop will offer last-minute race essentials, running accessories and performance wear. On the QT rooftop, you can find 2 experiences. From 9 a.m, the Rise and Recover space with Ambassador Ben Seymour and recovery tools like compression boots and massage guns. From 10 a.m, a customization hub will be available to create personalized commemorative items. In addition to this, there are some events with limited capacity, so registration is essential. They include shakeout runs on both Friday and Saturday, along with mobility and mindfulness that will help you tune in, loosen up and get race day ready from the inside out. These will be led by Lululemon Ambassador Ryan Mannix. The session blends fluid movement with intentional breath work to support your body and mind through every stage of the weekend journey. On Sunday, you can attend a live recording with us as Inside Running Podcast goes live from 1:30pm to 3pm in the QT Ballroom, with a big recap of the race weekend, special guest and post-marathon discussions. Following that, from 3 to 5pm, a post-race celebration will be held on the QT rooftop. This event is for all racers and supporters to reflect on the weekend with food, drinks, photo opportunities and custom keepsakes. More details are in the link in our Instagram bio or in the show notes.
Yep. Let's touch on your 2002 Commonwealth Games bronze medal. So this was the first global 1,500 metre medal that an Australian had won since Herb Elliott in 1960. So that meant we hadn't won one at an Olympics, World Championships or Commonwealth Games up until your medal. Memories from that race and that sort of that championship?
Yeah, that was obviously my first time representing Australia, and just being in the village, seeing athletes such as Kathy Freeman and Ian Thorpe. It was just a privilege and mind-blowing at the same time. But also I was there to do a job, and I was very focused on my event, and I knew that I was in shape and I was capable of competing against, the guys in the 1,500 meters. And I knew a few of them. So when we did the hits, I remember Manchester was raining every day. It was very miserable weather. But at the same time, I thought, well, you are an athlete. You are like a soldier. You have to, doesn't matter the weather, you just have to perform. So I was very nervous. Just like to put it out there, because sometimes a lot of kids, they ask me this question, were you nervous when you went to a race? And they think, athletes at a certain level, that's it, the nerves, they just disappear. No, they are always there. But at the same time, deep down, I felt very calm. I knew that sometimes you just feel something is there and something, is working, and you just calm and composed. But it's always good to hear that the start of the gun. So as soon as you hear the start of the gun, you start racing, that's it. Everything disappears, or the nerves or the anticipation, which is good. So we did the first round. I remember finishing pretty much shoulder to shoulder to William Cheer. He had the best of 3:31. And that was very comfortable. In fact, I could have finished first in that heat, but I just wanted to save myself. There was no point, using all your energy. You have a final couple of days later. And then the final, same thing. The weather hasn't improved. And I was very calm. I was very relaxed, which is very strange. But as I said, because I was very confident, and I knew that everything was working. Sometimes when you start a run and you just feel, oh man, this is great. You push and it's there. Your body responds, and that's how I felt. Excuse me. So we started the race, and obviously in the 1,500 meters, tactics are very important. There's always athletes moving back and forth and around you and so on. So you can never tell what's going to happen until you actually cross the line. And with 200 meters, remember we all started sprinting. And I was, I think, top 4, top 5. But I knew that I had enough to move up and finish with the top 3 and maybe even win it. With 100 to go, I was just behind William Cheer and one of the English guys, but I felt like they were slowing me down because I was behind them. I felt that I had more, but I didn't have any room or space. So I tried to move out to the outside lane, and at the very same time, sometimes in athletics or every sport, a second too late or a second too early, boom, you lose the race. So at that exact moment, that's when Michael East decided to start his sprint, and he blocked me off. So therefore, I couldn't really keep moving outside. So I had to go back on the inside. And this is with 80 meters to go. So it's all happening so quick. So I moved back on the inside, but I was stuck. I had nowhere to go. And I was just hoping that a gap might open up so I can actually go through it. And funny enough, the last 20 meters, a slight gap just opened up on the inside, very tight and very close to the rail. And I just snuck in and finished third. Yeah. It was a very tight race. Michael East, 3:37.35. Cheer, 3:37. And I ran a PB, 3:37.77.
Yeah, so you were a 700th of a second behind the silver. And actually, William Chichi was actually a 3:29 man.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
yes.
So but you had a pretty good patch then, because after that you then improved your 1,500 metre PB down to 3:36.
Yeah,
a couple of months later. And we should actually quickly go through your PBs while we're talking about them. So 800.
I don't remember them.
Well, here we go. I'll tell you the ones that I think they are, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So 800, 148.3 in Italy in 2002.
Riveretto?
Yeah, yep. 3:36.35 in Rieti in 2002 for the 1,500. Your 1 mile is 3:56.23, which was set in Eugene, Oregon in May of 2003. Your 3,000 meters, 7:53 in is it Tangier? Yeah,
yep, in Morocco,
and that was 2011. 5,000 meters, 13:38 in Hobart, but I'm guessing you didn't run too many 5,000 meters.
Not many, yeah.
2,000 metre steeplechase. You're actually the Australian record holder for the 2,000 metre steeplechase in 5:26.6. Do you remember where that one was set?
Yes, that's in Strasbourg.
Yep, 2007. 3,000 metre steeplechase, which we'll talk about shortly. 8:16.36 at the Olympics in 2008. And then, there's a 5K road and a 10K road here, which we won't mention those ones because you're better than that than those times. So you obviously had that really good period there with the 1,500 meters. When was the decision to move up to the steeple?
So in 2004, I was training for the Athens Olympics, and it's almost similar scenario to the 2000 period. So I remember we had a very good domestic season, running with the likes of Alistair Stevenson. We used to go pretty much head-to-head every race in that particular year. Lachlan Chisholm, Michael Power. This is just to name a few. I'm sure the list is long, but in particular with Alistair Stevenson, because we were both chasing the 1,500 meter qualifier, and I think we both ran like 3:37 or 3:38. So we both had a chance at the qualifier and the Olympic spot, and because we both had a B, actually can't remember if Alistair had a B outside. Therefore, it's very similar to the 2000 games where they will only take one athlete. So I remember I won the Olympic trials, and Alistair was second. That was in Sydney, and that was a fast race. Actually, we ran 3:38. Before the race, we decided with all the other athletes, including some of the guys that I just mentioned, and I want to throw in Julian Marsh as well, because I think he started the first part of the race. We just say, listen, guys, we need to get this Olympic qualifier. Forget the coaches, because I know the coaches were all arguing, giving us instructions. You just need to win the race and so on. So athletes just, we were talking to each other and said, listen, let's just run hard and try and produce a qualifier. If we can't, at least we tried. And also, it's better to run a fast race than a slow tactical race. There were most of them on board. We ran 3:38, I think.
Got the results here, actually. So, you won 3:38.43, Al Stevenson 3:38.78, and then Michael Shelley was third in 3:39.9.
Yes. So that's a kind of a fast time for a championship race. When you look at the Rio Olympics, I think they ran 3:50. Yeah. So then from that, I went overseas, and I remember I did a few races with Alistair overseas. We even shared a room in Hengelo, Netherlands, and we did the 1500. And I ran a big qualifier, and I was really hoping that I would be picked, because the selectors had no reason not to pick me. Unfortunately, I remember the phone call exactly. I was in Lausanne, and I was going to pace Hisham El Garouj to run 1,500 meters. I remember Hisham was having a tough year that year. He was having issues with his breathing, and he was off for a number of weeks, and that was his first race back. And they needed someone that they can trust, and someone who can do the pace properly, because the issue with Kenyans, they go out too quick and then they slow down. So I knew his coach, Kada, and he said, listen, can you do this? I said, yeah, no problem. And the night before that race, I was in my hotel room, and one of the selectors, David Calvert, back then, he said, unfortunately, they didn't select me. And he said, listen, I know your pain, and I remember the words, and I remember how you feel, but that's just the decision.
Yeah.
So it was, heartbreaking, because I really thought I deserved that spot. In fact, Australia didn't send anyone for that event. I remember the qualifying time, the A standard is 3:36.4, I think, and they ran a 3:36.6. So it was pretty much nothing. And then that's pretty much when I decided to do the steeplechase. I just felt that for me to stay in the sport, I need something different. I need something fresh. The 1,500 meters just exhausted me.
Yeah, so after having missed 2000 and 2004 by like a narrow margin, did you ever think that your Olympic dream was over, or you still believed that 2008 and 2012 were achievable?
I actually gave up for a few months, because I really thought that's it, and maybe it's just time to forget about that dream and just go and do something else. But then I just felt like I was missing running. And then sometimes I will go to the park just to, if I'm stressed or something, I will go to the park just to disconnect from the day-to-day life. And then I will do, a run, and then another run. And then I thought, well, I'm actually enjoying it. And if I'm coming here, wasting my time, I wouldn't call it waste, but, to go to the park, therefore, I might as well train properly. And that's when I started to think I need to get back into proper training, but I cannot do the same thing as before, because, as I said, I felt emotionally, physically, I was exhausted from the 1,500 meters. And in my mind, I felt, I've done everything I could, and I just need something new. And the 5K, I knew that I was not a long distance runner, Even with my build, I'm naturally a strong runner compared to middle distance guys. And then I thought the steeple will be my event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how did your obviously, other than having to jump over hurdles, how did your training change from what you're doing for 1500 to steeplechase?
It was very interesting because it was a new territory for me. I didn't know anyone who did steeplechase. My first race, in fact, I remember I was running with Jeff Hunt. Back then, he was the best in New South Wales. And it was very comical. I remember the crowd at Sydney Olympic Park. It was an interesting race to watch because Jeff was so smooth getting over the hurdles and running on the flat. And then with me, to get over the hurdles was a circus. And he will put, 5, 6, 7, 8 meters straight away because I spent so much time trying to get over the hurdles. But then as soon as I'm on the flat, it's very visible that I catch up to him straight away. So to the crowd, it was very entertaining, thinking, what's going to happen at the end, And I remember winning that race.
Yeah, because for our listeners out there, to put it into context, so Jeff Hunt was obviously an amazing athlete, went to the Olympics, went to a couple of Olympics for the marathon, but when it comes to sort of 1500 metres, your 1500 metre PB is about 12 seconds quicker than his. So your flat speed was so much quicker. As you said, you would have been catching up in between the barriers, but then he was getting away from you on the jump. So it would have been quite entertaining to watch.
That's right.
And so from in terms of volume and did your sessions change much in terms of you becoming a bit more aerobic and a bit stronger?
I was a little bit lost in terms of trying to find the right training. So I was kind of just trying different things, mixing up some 1500 meter sessions and 5K, and then trying to do some jumping in between. My training was just all over the shop. But I remember I went to France specifically, and I was talking to this French runner, Bob Tari. He was a very good steeplechaser, and he told me that you need to keep your 1500 meter speed. That's your key, and then learn how to jump. So then I adjusted my training where I thought, well, I need to train like a 1500 meters, but I need to throw in some sessions, bit of 5K sessions, and then the jumps in between. So I was able to come up with a 1500 meter training, but slightly modified to suit more the 3K distance. And obviously the 3K, it's not that long. I know it's double the distance for 1500, but it's still a middle distance event.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about the lead up to the 2008 Olympics. In particular, you went to train in Kenya, and firstly, what was it like training in Kenya? Who were your training partners over there? But also, can you talk us through what happened over there in regards to, it was the year of their elections, and it becomes quite an unsafe place during election time in Kenya. So can you talk us through that period?
It was a very interesting period, actually, because you remember meeting Ruben Koskai. He started coming to Australia. He started a relationship with, or a management relationship with a gentleman called Peter Healy and Di Huxley. I think they were attempting to start a management company where they can manage athletes, but more specifically Kenyans. Anyway, so then we made contact, and they said, listen, I want to come to Kenya. And that's pretty much how the first step started. And in 2008, so went to Kenya, stayed with him, and I was training with him. So Ruben he won the Senior Olympics in the steeplechase.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a no-brainer that this guy has done it, and he has won the biggest race in this event. So therefore, it makes sense to go and train with him. And then, so we flew to Nairobi, and then from there we had to catch this mini bus or van, very crowded, from Nairobi to Eldoret. It was like 6 hours trip. It wasn't very comfortable, but sometimes you just have to do what you need to do to get there. So then Eldoret, just to give the listeners a little bit of an idea, it's like the mecca of distance running for Kenyans. So most Kenyans that you see competing overseas, they are all living and training in Eldoret. So then I stayed with Ruben. I trained with him, but then we had other people. Sometimes when I go to town, even if you go to a shop or you just see all these random Olympic champions and world record holders just coming in to buy a tea or bread or meal and no one even looks at them because obviously they live there, they are locals, but they just people that just don't care. They're just normal people like everyone else.
And you can see how that inspires a new generation of distance runners when kids are seeing these Olympic champions in the same shops as them.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and also most of the businesses, they are owned by those athletes as well. So when you go to a hotel, it's owned by an ex-athlete. When you go to a shop, it's an ex-athlete or an athlete. So then I guess it does encourage young kids to actually. It's like a ticket out as well to success for that particular area. So then, I did a lot of training with, I forgot all the names now, so many, because, every morning you would be running with a bunch of Olympic champions and, but I remember Shaheen used to be called Steven Chirano, and then he changed to, was he running for Bahrain?
Or Qatar. I think it was Qatar.
Yeah, Qatar, yeah. Shaheen and, you pretty much see every athlete, basically.
Yeah.
What was interesting with the morning run, I will go with my group, like about, 10, 12 athletes. We go to this forest, and then you just see groups running from everywhere, and every morning I think I see about 300 athletes just running in groups, Sometimes we pass a group, sometimes a group will come toward us and then go to another direction. Just so many athletes. It was crazy. And the reason they run so early, because I asked the first time I got there, because I'm not really a morning person. Even when I go to Europe, most of the French, Spanish, Algerian athletes that I train with, we always start at 10, But in Kenya, they're at 5:30, 6 o'clock. The first day, I couldn't really wake up. I can't even see. So I said, why do you guys go so early? And the reason is actually because most of the roads are dirt roads.
Yep.
So they have to go early before people actually start going to work and school and so on. So it's more to avoid the dust. But then it just stays cultural, I guess. So even when they go to Europe, they still wake up so early and do their morning run.
Yeah. And so during that period of the elections, did I hear stories where you actually couldn't get out and train, and there might have been like a week-long period where you had to pretty much just bunker yourself down in like the huts to make sure that you weren't seen? Was it, or it wasn't quite that bad?
It was very bad. I was actually didn't know whether we will make it out alive, because airport, it's a 6 hours, 6 hour drive. You can, all the roads were blocked. I remember once I went, the shops were closed. Pretty much everything was kind of shut down. I didn't have what do you call it, mobile
mobile phone reception, or
not reception, but you need to recharge to have credit.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you can,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So because I was only there for a short period of time, I didn't have a mobile phone contract. You just have to top up. Yeah, basically top up, every week. So because the shops were closed, I couldn't top up. So even the outside world, such as, my parents and my friends, they couldn't get in touch with me. And yeah, it was just crazy. Like you see people burnt alive and cars were destroyed and burned. It was just horrific. And the only time we went to the city once because we heard a few shops were open, every 5 kilometers the roads will be closed and they have to stop and they look at the car and who's in the car and you have to say that you're from certain tribe to let you through. And with me, they always looked funny because they think, who's this guy? He's a white guy. But the only thing is that worked to my advantage was because I was white, I didn't have any involvement in the political system or election. So therefore, I was excluded from the trouble that were happening. But I remember with Ruben Koska, each time he had to tell them which tribe he's from to let him through. Apparently, like if you don't belong to a certain tribe, they were just killing each other.
Yeah, a bit like in like the Tutsis and Hutu is it?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So let's talk then. So that was in the lead up to the 2008 Olympics. So you come 6th at the Olympics in a PB. Now, I'm sure one of our listeners will call me out, but I reckon from an Australian distance running point of view, finishing 6th at the Olympics is probably the best result at that time that we would have had since Mona finished 5th at the in the marathon in Seoul in '88. So that's an incredible result, and you actually beat Ezekiel Kemboy in that race. Talk us through the race, but also, were you happy with it, or were you slightly disappointed to miss the Australian record by 14 hundredths of a second?
Yeah, it was a very hard road to get to the Olympics because the lead up and all the interruption, but I managed to get myself in shape. I remember running when I came back to Sydney, I told Athletics Australia that I lost 6 weeks of training. I'm really not in shape to run at the Olympic trials, therefore I need an exemption. But the response was, since it's not medical, we will take it into consideration. We understand, because I was in contact with them when I was in Kenya at the beginning, and they said we already know the story. It's fine. You still need to go on and just run, but you are through, because I had PBs of 8:18 and so on. So clearly I was under the 8:23 A standard. So then I did, and remember lost the race to Martin Dent. But I didn't really care because I thought, well, I'm in anyway. And then when they announced it wasn't included, and I said, guys, well, what's going on? And they pretty much just ignored all the correspondence that we had earlier. And they said, well, you just need to go to Europe and prove that you can actually run fast. So I was devastated, but I didn't care that much because I knew that I will run fast anyway. Yeah. So I did go to Europe. I remember I just ran a bunch of fast races. So running that time wasn't an issue. So then at the Games, it was very similar to 2002. I felt that I got there in such a brilliant shape that I'm capable of doing something special. Obviously, you still need to calm the nerves down and take one race at a time. So in the first round, remember this American athlete usually the races, they start slow. And that's pretty much how I pictured it in my mind. But then to our shock, this American athlete, I think his name was Fragamani or something similar, he took off like crazy because that's how he ran at the US trials. He just led from the gun, and he thought he would just do the same thing at the Olympics, which was not a bad tactic, but this is the Olympics. And I think he thought maybe if he goes fast, no one will follow him because everyone will be wanting a slower and tactical race. Anyway, so then everyone had to readjust their tactics, including me. Got through. I think I hit the last barrier, almost fell, but I stayed on my feet and finished, I think, 5th or 6th and made it through. And then the final was very similar. I was very calm, funny enough, during that final. And then I was just trying to hang on as much as I could. I knew the pace was reasonably fast, and I knew I was running in a PB pace. At the bell, I remember I was 11th, and then I must have had a massive sprint because at the end I finished 6th. So that's pretty much the race. In terms of records and stuff, I wasn't really thinking too much about the Australian record. In fact, I didn't even know what was the record at that time. I just enjoyed my running.
Well, it sounds like times, because even when I asked you about your PBs, you're like, I don't even know what my PBs are. So it sounds like times have never really been the focus for you. It's more about just competing and getting in there, getting into the race.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I think one thing is certain. If you are in shape and you train properly, you will run the times.
Yeah.
If you're not, it doesn't really make sense, or it doesn't matter if you have a time and then you're trying to achieve that time if you haven't done the work.
Yeah.
So back of my mind, I do have a time that I need to achieve, such as a qualifier or certain time to get into a certain race or Diamond League and so on. But I wasn't really keeping in my mind all the different records.
Yeah. And beating Kemboy, the two-time Olympic gold medalist in that event, must have felt pretty good.
Yeah, it did, because it legitimized my 6th place. It's not by fluke. You actually beat some pretty, outstanding athletes. Remember, they, the top 3, obviously, they received medals, but then up to 6th place, they received this nice frame from the Olympics. And, because I was 6th, I was the last one to receive one.
Oh, so, really? I didn't know that. So what's it have on it?
It's this nice. It's a frame. It has all the Olympics. Obviously, it has it will have your name and so on. But it's just a nice frame from that they give out to up to 6th place. So I assume all those 100-meter finalists up to 6, you will receive one of them, and then the last 2 they probably just receive a handshake.
Oh, there you go. I actually learned something today, and I reckon most of the public wouldn't realise that that's the case, because all you ever see is, all right, you got to finish top 3 to get something at the Olympics, but no, it's not the case. It's 6th.
Yes.
So, having won a bronze at Commonwealth Games and finishing 6th at the Olympics, which race or which one?
Very hard.
Yeah.
Before you finish your question.
Yeah. Could you split them or not?
It is hard because the Commonwealth Games, it was my first championship representing Australia. So emotionally, it meant a lot. And also just to be named next to someone like Herb Elliott, it's a privilege. I remember they had this article, I think something like 40 years on, and then they had they mentioned Herb Elliott and so on. He was the last one to win a medal in 1500. So as I said, it is a privilege to be named in the same sentence or page as him. So that's why I think it does mean a lot. But also it kind of broke the drought, that means now Aussies can actually go out there and win medals in that event.
Yeah.
40 years anymore. But then when you compare it to the Olympics, the Olympics is the Olympics,
Yeah.
It's very, very hard.
Yeah, I thought you'd have trouble answering that question, so well done. So then obviously qualified for the 2012 Olympics, but I just want to get into now a little bit more, like when did you officially sort of retire, and what were your reasons for it?
After 2012, I was actually in a better shape in 2012, and I was a little bit disappointed that I didn't do as well. I remember going to the Atlas Mountains in Morocco twice for a training camp, and I was running some good races. My last, I think, race before the games, I went to Istanbul in Turkey and ran an 8:21 or 22. And going to the Olympics, I thought, I actually have a 12 in my legs. But I had measles few weeks before the games. I actually didn't even think I would make it to the games. So I guess to be at the London Games, considering the circumstances, it was... it was sad in a way because all the hard work, just went out of the window. But at the same time, it was a battle that I won because I was able to actually get to the starting line.
Yeah, and so it was straight after the Olympics in 2012 that you went, I'm done now?
I thought I will give it one more year and try and go to the Moscow World Champs. Mm-hmm. But it just didn't work. I have a young son. I started work full time. The dynamics just, and the hunger wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the same as before, put it this way.
Yeah, and it sounds like you stayed relatively injury free throughout your career. Do you have any reasons for that?
I think naturally my frame is a strong, quite muscular for a distance runner. But then when you look at some of the North African runners, they have a similar body shape. When you look at McLaughlin, he's quite a solid guy. Said Gurney is the same. So I guess it's just our natural build. Yeah. But also I had no issues taking a day off when I didn't feel right. Or if I start to feel a little soreness, I will slow down or even stop the session. And I learned that from when I went to Morocco in 2002 to train. When we train, but then sometimes we'll go to the track and the Royal Army Guard will tell us that you can't go in because Hisham El Garouji is training.
Yeah.
So then, they had to close the stadium just for him to train. But then sometimes they will call us and say, listen, Hisham is not training today because he's not feeling well or he started warming up and he doesn't feel great. So he postponed his sessions for tomorrow. Therefore, we'll go and train. And one day, I was talking to his coach and he goes, it's not unusual for Hisham to postpone his session or if he doesn't feel great. So then I thought, this guy is the fastest athlete in history, and he has no issues taking a day off or postpone his running session. And who am I, to disagree with that? So then I started to adopt the same philosophy. Listen to your body. Your instinct is right.
That's a great point you make, because so many athletes will just look at the program and regardless of how they're feeling go, I need to get it done. So it's good to hear somebody of your sort of level and El Garouji's level to realise that, missing a day is not the end of the world. So
that's right.
All right, let's talk about what you've been doing since sort of full-time running or retiring from competitive running, because you're still heavily involved with the sport.
Yeah, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm still stuck in athletics. So right now I work at Little Athletics New South Wales, but I also do the odd gigs with Athletics New South Wales. So I go to schools a lot. I pretty much just try and teach kids and give them, what I learned from my athletics. Hopefully they something from it. And it's pretty much that's my role, coaching and development. So do a lot of camps, clinics, and comps.
And as a coach and a development officer, what do you think the sport needs to do to improve its exposure and create, I guess, better pathways for up and coming athletes?
I think the sport sometimes it's becoming like the politics. When someone comes into the office, they know they've got 4 years to do something, and therefore they just rush into certain decisions. Some of them are good, some of them they don't really benefit the sport in the long run. So I guess the administration, they need to listen to the athletes first and coaches, because they are pretty much the main actors of the show. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, their voice is not heard. And I don't know how much consulting goes into, consulting athletes and coaches in the planning of athletics.
Yeah. And did you have much? Will you be out at the Albie Thomas Mile?
Yes, we are very excited this year, and it's the national title. So this is the second year in a row that the Albie Thomas Mile is a national title. We are expecting some very good races, and we just hope that the weather will be kind to us. At the moment, as you are aware, with all the smoke and so on, it's very unpredictable what's going to happen, but hopefully it will clear up by then.
Yeah, well, there you go, listeners. If you're in Sydney and you want to get out and see the great man Youcef as well as the top racing, then head to the Albie Thomas Mile. So, I think that's pretty much it. You've been awesome. Like, we've been chatting for nearly 90 minutes, but it's just gone so quick. And like, I've known a lot of your story, but I've still been really engrossed in our conversation. So thanks for giving up so much of your time.
Thank you for having me, and it is a pleasure. I thought when we started chatting, we will be done within 35 minutes, but as you just mentioned, 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And,
because you asked me, you go, how long does it take? I said, most interviews about an hour. Like, we should be able to get it done in an hour, but no, you speak really well, and some of the stories you've got, and I guess just your life journey is really interesting to hear. So. Thanks for your time. And do you still get out and jog?
Yes, I do. I be 2-3 times a week, but I also play football quite seriously, I guess. Yeah. We just won the double this year, the league and the cup. So I play for a team called Coogee United.
Cool. All right. Well, that's awesome. And how do you find all of the How do you find all sort of the lateral movement? As we know, distance running is all just straight line. Did you find that difficult?
It was very difficult at the beginning. In fact, sometimes when I was trying to, wake up in the morning, I couldn't even move my legs to get out of bed. But then I just had to readjust and go to the gym and do things that will improve my certain muscles. Mm. But now I enjoy it, and it's also another way of keeping fit. So it's a message as well for ex-athletes when you finish your athletics. Some people, they keep running forever, which is great. But if you don't, try and find another sport. That's the best way to stay fit. Otherwise, you lose fitness and you gain weight very quick.
Yeah, some great words of wisdom there. So, thanks again. And, hopefully we can catch up soon in Sydney. It's been a long time since we've seen each other.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
No worries. See you, Youcef. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the weekend interview powered by Lululemon. Don't forget, if you're heading up to the Gold Coast Marathon, Lululemon are bringing together runners, crews and clubs for one of the biggest weekends on the Australian running calendar. Join them for final race prep, recovery sessions and post-race celebrations. You can register for the clubhouse via the link in our bio.